Hello everyone and Happy New Year. You are watching the first Sex Ed Q&A segment of Eggplants and Peaches for 2021. I'm your host Naomi Lopez, my pronouns are she, her, and today I'm answering questions around consent, coming out, ejaculation, as per usual, and testicles. Also much more, so stay tuned. Okay, so today is a packed show, and I want to start with a brief announcement, and that is that I will be starting nursing school this coming Monday, so January 4th, and it is a one-year accelerated program, meaning that it is going to be very, very full and very, very fast. So I want to continue making these videos and producing the content-based videos, and that is the plan. But I needed to analyze how I can save time. And the way that I'm going to save time is to only answer your sex ed questions on the YouTube video. They will no longer be published on the website, at least for the next few months until the program starts to slow down a bit. But you can expect your answers to be, or your questions to be answered on the weekly sex ed Q&A video, but not on the website anymore. And I also want to encourage you to look at the sex ed answers that I post every week, because I've answered over 100 at this point, I believe. And some of you are answering or asking some of the same questions, which is totally fine. I'm happy to answer them for you on the video. But you can save time and you don't have to wait for me to post your question and answer on the video if you go to the answers tab on eggplantsandpeaches.com and just scroll through the variety of questions that have been asked, because a lot of you are asking about ejaculation, arousal fluids, stickiness between your legs or coming from your penis, and I've answered that a lot of times. So if you go to eggplantsandpeaches.com, go to the answers tab, quickly browse that if you can before you submit your question to see if I've already answered it. But nonetheless, I'll answer it on the video. All right, so let's get started. We have a lot of questions to get through today, and the first question is it normal to get leg cramps when I orgasm, or is it just me? And the answer is yes, it is completely normal for your legs to cramp when you orgasm. It's also really normal for your face to cramp, your uterus to cramp, and any of your limbs to cramp. So when you orgasm, you can expect that your uterus is going to contract and some other muscles. If you're finding that it's really uncomfortable and painful, you can try drinking more water or having more electrolytes in your diet, and that could help with the cramping and maybe make it less uncomfortable. But nonetheless, that is very normal. The next question is, why do I get laughed at by my friends when I hold my boyfriend's hand in school? And so the best way to understand why they're laughing at you or making fun of you is to ask them why, because we can't make assumptions here. And if they say anything homophobic, it's because they're uncomfortable and you are being yourself, and they probably aren't used to homosexuality. However, what I want you to do is to keep your head held up high, because you're not doing anything wrong. If your partner is consenting to you holding their hand and you are showing them affection in a way that's mutual and consensual, then there's nothing wrong with that. Being homosexual is as normal as being heterosexual. I'm going to say that again. Being homosexual is as normal as being heterosexual, and I want you to stay true to yourself. So if your friends say anything that is homophobic, I want you to either walk away and continue to love yourself and express your affection to your partner, or you can choose to ask them questions such as, well, what's wrong with me holding my boyfriend's hand? Why is that funny? Why isn't it funny if you hold your girlfriend's hand? Because there is nothing wrong with what you're doing. And you can critically ask them why they have their beliefs, where they come from, and why they think that's okay. Now, if you don't feel brave enough to do that, I understand. Just simply walk away, hold your head up, and stay true to who you are, because you are you, and being homosexual is completely normal. And it may be the case that they're laughing at you for another reason, right? So that's why you need to ask them first. The next question is, today my mom caught me ejaculating, and I'm too scared to talk to her as I'm really embarrassed. Are there any tips on talking to her? And it's completely understandable that you're feeling embarrassed or somewhat shy or scared. And what I want to point out to you is that in order for you to have been conceived, somebody had to have ejaculated. So what you're doing is completely normal, and it is kind of awkward or embarrassing to talk to your parents about sex or masturbation at first, but The truth is, you were conceived by somebody ejaculating. So that right there can help you feel a little bit more confident in going into this conversation. Now, the next thing you need to do is approach this in a really mature way. And so you can start by asking your mom to have a private conversation at a time that's convenient for you both. You can sit her down and just start the conversation by stating how you feel. If you're feeling embarrassed, say, I'm feeling embarrassed. If you're feeling shy, state that. Anything that you're feeling, go ahead and state it. That's a way to express your vulnerability. And then you can start by asking her what she saw and how she feels about it. And then you can go forth from there. So this is just a way to get the conversation started, but it's also going to differ and shape out differently depending on how your mom and you relate to each other and how your mom feels about masturbation and sex education as a whole. So these are just some tips to help you get the conversation going, but this is also a really great way for you to cultivate maturity with your mom and hopefully open up an avenue where you two can talk openly and freely about sex education and relationships overall. The next question is, can you pee in a sanitary pad? And the straightforward answer is only if it is an accident. Those pads are meant to absorb blood and not urine, and when you bleed, the amount of volume that you're going to be bleeding is not going to be as much urine as you would when you urinate. So that pad is not going to absorb the urine like it would period blood. And so if you're having any trouble holding back your urine, you're finding that you're urinating very frequently, you're not getting relief, then you're going to want to see a doctor immediately because that could be a sign of a bladder infection or a urinary tract infection. And so if you're having that issue in the meantime, there are urinary incontinence pads which help people if they're having issues holding their urine back. And those are going to be more absorbent than the sanitary pads for menstrual blood. So I hope that answers your question. The next question is it okay to ask for consent before a hug? And absolutely. You should all be asking for consent before you touch anybody. You never walk up to somebody and just touch their hair, even if it's in good intention. You never just grab someone. You never poke at somebody. You really need to respect everyone's boundaries on their bodies. And at a certain point, you may get into a relationship where you establish clear boundaries on continual consent, what's okay regularly, and what needs to be asked every single time. And those can be talked about once you develop those longer lasting or deeper relationships. But to start off with, whenever you meet someone, or if you haven't set up these long-term consent guidelines, you're going to want to ask for consent every single time before you touch somebody. The next question is, my partner asked for my consent to touch me under my underwear, and I said yes. It felt really tingly around my penis. Is this okay? Yes, this is okay. It's very normal for the head of the penis to have a lot of sensation. There are many nerve endings on the head of the penis, meaning that it's going to either tingle or feel really good or sensitive when it's touched. So if that felt good for you, that's great. If you're finding that there's persistent pain, then you would want to go see a doctor. And also tell your partner that it hurts so that they can stop right away and respect your boundaries and follow consent. The next question is, my boyfriend just came out to me and we have been together for a while. I'm very proud of him and supportive. How do I help him and support him through leaving our relationship? Well, I think first and foremost, coming out and asking this question is very sweet of you. It shows a lot of compassion. And for those of you watching, the person asking this is female bisex and they identify as female, and their partner is male bisex. And so her partner just came out as homosexual and she wants to know how to best support him leaving the relationship. And the best way to support him is to accept how he's feeling, accept where he's at. And if you are capable of being his friend, I say go for that. And you may have lost a partner, but you have gained a friend. And I think that's really sweet of you. So if he ever gets bullied, stand up for him. If he needs somebody to talk to in confidence, be that person. And overall, just be his friend if that's something that you are willing to do. But the best way to support him would be to accept how he's feeling, accept his decision, and part ways with respect. All right, so the next question is, today we were on a car journey and I was in the back with my younger brother and I was squeezing my legs together as it felt really, really good. However, after a while, there was a lot of liquid running down my leg from my vagina, and it was as if I was sitting in a puddle. I know he saw and thinks I just peed, and so do I. But what was this? He told my mom, and she asked me if I peed. So was it pee or not? And from what it sounds like, it doesn't sound like you urinated. What it sounds like is you were squeezing your legs together, that was putting pressure on your clitoris, and that was causing a lot of pleasure for you. That stimulation to the clitoris can cause a lot of really great sensations that are very pleasurable, and this will result in a lot of vaginal fluids being formed. And this is a normal way that your body lubricates. The more pleasure you feel, the more your body will lubricate. And so those fluids that you were sitting in, the puddle, it could have been vaginal arousal fluid. Also, it's important to mention that maybe you ejaculated. Maybe the sensation was so great that you ejaculated. So that's another thing that it could have been. But overall, I don't think it was urine. And going forward, I would recommend that you masturbate or pleasure yourself in a more private area, just so you can avoid answering questions that are a little bit awkward with your family, and so that you can fully relax and you don't have to clean up any messes when they're around. However, you did nothing wrong. You were just going with what felt good, and that's amazing and that's great. I don't think I could have done that. It wasn't possible for me to do that when I was your age. There was nothing wrong with what you did, but if you want to avoid those awkward questions from your brother and your parents, then you can just do it in a more private place and you won't have to worry about that. The next question is it normal for one testicle to hang lower than the other? And yes, that's completely normal. So the body is full of asymmetry. There's many parts of my body that are not completely identical from the left side to the right side, and that's so normal for everyone. And we all have different things that are going to be asymmetrical. And so with testicles, you'll find that one hangs higher than the other. You'll find that one's a little bit bigger than the other. And the only real concern that you would need to talk to your parents and talk to a doctor about is if there was a lump or multiple lumps. If you're having any swelling or pain with your testicles, then that would be a reason to go and see a doctor. But if one's just hanging lower than the other, then that is normal. All right, so the next question is, today during sex, I got a really intense orgasm, causing me to grab my sheets. Is this normal to have such an intense feeling when you orgasm or not? And to answer your question, yes, it can be. So orgasms can be very, very intense. It is a feeling of climax, so like going up a hill, and then a sense of release and relaxation. And so when you're heading up that climax, you may find that it is really overwhelming, really pleasurable, and maybe just a little bit too much, which could be causing you to clench down a little bit more. And that's normal. If it felt good, go with that. You can also try the next time to consciously try to relax more, and that can also be really pleasurable. It can also make it really intense, even more so, and so it can be kind of difficult, but that's something that you can explore on your own time when you want to. It's just a little tip that I'm giving you, but that is normal that you clenched onto the bed sheets. Like I've said before, some people's muscles will contract when they're orgasming, and it's also normal for you to form a fist and clench them, to tense up, for your toes to curl. So whatever your reaction is, if it feels good, go with it. And if you wanted to do some self-exploration, you can also try to relax. The next question is, my vagina produces a lot of fluid during everyday activities. My mom spoke to me and suggested I sit on a towel when sitting on the couch, but I feel embarrassed that I have to. I understand that you're feeling embarrassed, and I can see why. Your mom may have had good intentions, but I can also see how having you sit on a towel kind of puts you on a spotlight and could render really awkward or uncomfortable conversations if someone were to ask you why you're sitting on the towel. It kind of puts you on the spotlight to have to answer them and be a little bit more vulnerable than you want to be. So another alternative to sitting on a towel could be to use panty liners. You could use menstrual pads, and the menstrual pads that you can use can be cotton and disposable, or they can be cloth and reusable. So that's an option for you as well. And then a newer option would be to use menstrual panties. So these are going to be highly absorbent panties that can be used for menstruation and for a lot of vaginal fluids that are produced. And so if you're finding that you're sitting in a puddle, then you're going to want to change your pad, panty liner, or your menstrual panties often, because you don't want to be sitting in wet fluid. That can be really uncomfortable, but it can also cause a yeast infection. So these are just different alternatives that are more discreet than sitting on a towel. So I hope that helps. And if you need further help, feel free to submit another anonymous question just copy and paste this prior question so that I know it's you. The next question is it safe for my partner to ejaculate on my belly? And so for this question, I collaborated with Dr. Marcus, a family medicine physician who will be featured on future episodes regularly. So stay tuned for her. She'll be on the show regularly. But for this question, we collaborated on how to best answer it for you. And what we came up with is that it's actually not safe because of the fact that if your partner's ejaculating on your stomach, that means that they are most likely not wearing a condom, because if this were the case, they'd have to take off the condom and then ejaculate on your belly. And it's most likely, I'm assuming, that your partner is not using a condom and they're pulling out and then ejaculating on your stomach. And so the problem with this is that it's leaving you vulnerable to pregnancy and STIs. And so when your partner is pulling out, there's still a chance for pregnancy because there can be sperm in pre-cum, and also maybe your partner isn't pulling out in time, and that's actually quite common that they'll think they'll pull out in time, but maybe a little bit of semen was expelled into the vagina. And to be honest, it only takes one sperm to impregnate an egg, so that fertilization process only takes one. The fact that you're not using a condom would definitely leave you exposed and leave you vulnerable for STIs. This is actually not safe. And I would recommend that you ask your partner to use a condom every time and to explore your options for contraception. The next question and last question of the day is, are there any other ways for two people with a penis to have sex? And yes, there's definitely a variety of ways that you can have sex that does not include anal intercourse. And you can get really creative with them. So I'm going to give you a few different options, and there are many more out there, but these are just a few of the obvious ones. So you can do sensory play, and what that looks like is just focusing on touch and what feels really good for touch. So you're going to want to talk about consent and what is okay and what's not okay, but some people use, for example, a feather and just lightly run it over someone's body, and that could feel really, really great. And if you do it really lightly, you're going to feel a lot of sensation. You can use a paintbrush. Those also feel really good. A variety of other sensation-inducing objects on the skin that can be really fun, really playful, and romantic. You can also have really long makeout sessions, and that's also great. You can use your hands to stimulate each other. You can have mutual masturbation sessions. You can have oral sex with one another. Just make sure you use a condom because you can transmit STIs through oral sex. And you can also have phone sex. So this could look like you two talking on the phone with one another, talking about things you'd like to do to each other, or reminiscing about things you've done, or fantasizing about certain things. Just be aware that if you're underage, whatever the legal age is in your country, that you could be charged with child pornography if you are sending nude pictures of yourself or receiving nude pictures of your partner. And if anyone's underage in that scenario, you could get charged with child pornography. So I know that's the law in the US. You have to be 18 years old to send nude pictures of yourself and to receive nude pictures of people. I don't know what it's like if you're in the UK or in another country. I'm not sure what the laws are, but just make sure that you're aware of that going into it if you are wanting to send nude pictures. But yes, there are many different ways to have sex without anal intercourse if you are a couple with two penises. Okay, everyone, so you have just finished watching the first Q&A segment of Eggplants and Peaches for 2021. If you didn't catch it in the beginning, I am starting nursing school this coming Monday, January 4th, and so to save time but to still answer your questions, I will only be posting the answers on the weekly sex ed Q&A videos, so they will no longer be on the website, but there are about 100 questions that have been answered on the website, so feel free to peruse them, and before you ask a question, maybe I've already answered it. If you'd like to participate, if you like what I'm doing, go to eggplantsandpeaches.com and you can ask your own sex ed question and I'll answer it on here every week. Please subscribe, it helps what I do, and I appreciate you all, and I look forward to this journey with you in 2021. Thank you.